Eleanor Hayes had always believed that family was the anchor of life. Born in the bustling suburbs of Chicago, she spent her entire life putting her children first. Every penny she earned as a schoolteacher went toward their clothes, their education, their happiness. She skipped vacations, sacrificed dreams, and stayed awake through countless nights just to make sure they had everything she never did. For decades, she told herself that when she grew old, her children would hold her hand the way she had once held theirs. But life has a cruel way of mocking expectations. Eleanor was 68 when her world shattered. Her husband had passed years earlier, leaving her the quiet, modest house they had built together. She thought it would be the home she'd grow old in. But her children saw things differently. "You can't live alone anymore, Mom," her eldest son, Daniel, had said one autumn evening, his voice flat and impatient. "It's too much responsibility for us to keep checking on you. You need professional care." Professional care. That phrase stung like poison. Eleanor understood what he meant, the nursing home. She had heard the whispers before, the subtle hints, the annoyed sighs when she asked for help with groceries or when she forgot a doctor's appointment. "I raised you," she whispered, tears clouding her vision. "I gave you everything. How can you?" But Daniel didn't meet her eyes. Her daughter-in-law muttered something about her being a burden. Her younger daughter, Melissa, simply said, "It's for your own good, Mom. You'll be comfortable there." Comfortable. That night, they drove her to a facility on the outskirts of the city. The neon sign glowed St. Mary's Nursing Home as rain streaked the car window. Eleanor clutched her handbag, inside it, a faded photograph of her late husband and a small gold cross she'd worn since she was a teenager. The moment she stepped inside, the smell of antiseptic and loneliness hit her. The hallways were lined with pale faces, eyes dulled by years of abandonment. Some stared blankly at the walls, others whispered to themselves. Eleanor felt her chest tighten as the staff cheerfully welcomed her, as though she were a guest checking into a hotel. But this wasn't a hotel. This was exile. The first nights were the hardest. Eleanor lay in a narrow bed with stiff sheets, listening to the cries of other residents down the hall. Some begged for their children. Others muttered names in their sleep. She clutched her pillow and bit her lip to keep from sobbing aloud. "How did it come to this?" she whispered into the darkness. Days stretched into weeks. Meals were bland, conversations hollow. Her children visited twice in the first month, bringing flowers and promises to return. But the flowers withered, and the promises turned to silence. One winter morning, Eleanor overheard two nurses chatting outside her door. "Such a shame," one said. "She's still so sharp for her age. But her kids just dumped her here." The other replied with a sigh. "Happens all the time. Families don't want the responsibility. They say it's easier this way. Easier this way." Eleanor's chest burned with humiliation. Was that all she was now? A responsibility? A burden? That afternoon, while sitting in the lounge, she noticed something. A group of younger staff members gathered around a TV, discussing a segment about a startup that had gone public. Their words were like sparks in the gloom. "She raised us," one of them said, "but look at us now. We're building companies, making money. And she's just here." The sting was unbearable. That night, Eleanor pulled out her old notebook. It had sat in her handbag untouched, filled with lesson plans, budgets, and personal reflections. She turned to a blank page. And for the first time in weeks, she wrote, "They think I am finished. But I am not finished." Something shifted inside her. She began observing everything around her, the staff, the routines, the small inefficiencies in the nursing home system. Her sharp mind, dulled by grief, began to sharpen again. She started sketching ideas. What if she could build something? What if she could use the years of knowledge, patience, and resilience that life had given her? At first, it was just scribbles, notes about meal delivery systems, better community care structures, affordable services for the elderly. But slowly, those notes turned into plans. Her roommate, a frail woman named Margaret, noticed her scribbling late at night. "What are you doing, Eleanor?" she asked one evening, voice trembling with curiosity. "Planning," Eleanor said simply. Margaret chuckled weakly. "Planning what?" "We're old. The world doesn't care about us anymore." Eleanor's hands stilled. She met Margaret's weary eyes and whispered, "Then I'll make the world care." The next day, Eleanor requested access to the library computer. It wasn't much, an outdated desktop with a slow internet connection. But it was enough. She began researching. She read about businesses run by seniors, about online platforms, about government grants. Each click, each article felt like oxygen rushing back into her lungs. But every time she mentioned her ideas to the staff or other residents, she was met with laughter. "You're too old for that. Business? At your age? You should just rest. Play bingo." The words echoed the same message her children had given her: you don't matter anymore. And yet, every insult only fueled her fire. Eleanor knew pain now. She knew betrayal. But beneath it all, she discovered something her children never understood: resilience. One night, as snow blanketed the world outside, Eleanor wrote in her notebook again. "They left me here to fade. But I will rise. I don't know how yet, but I will. One day, they will see me not as a burden, but as a force they cannot break." Her hands shook as she underlined the words, but her heart burned with determination. That was the night Eleanor Hayes was reborn. Eleanor Hayes knew she couldn't remain just another forgotten figure in the nursing home lounge. The notebook she kept beneath her pillow had become her secret lifeline. Every page she filled was like a brick in the foundation of something bigger, something she couldn't yet fully name, but knew she was destined to build. Still, the world outside wasn't waiting for her. When she applied online for small business grants through the clunky nursing home computer, the rejections came swiftly. "Thank you for your application, but we are looking for younger candidates with more long-term potential. Unfortunately, your proposal does not align with our future-focused vision. Your age bracket may not suit the scalability we seek." Each email was like a dagger. Eleanor would print them out and fold them into her notebook. She didn't keep them as reminders of failure, she kept them as fuel. "They think I'm too old to matter," she muttered one morning, her fingers trembling as she closed yet another rejection. "But I'll show them that wisdom isn't an expiry date." Her first chance came in the most unexpected way. One afternoon, while helping Margaret, her frail roommate, with her knitting, a young nurse named Carla struck up a conversation. "You're always writing," Carla said curiously. "What's in that notebook of yours?" Eleanor hesitated. She had kept her plans secret, afraid of mockery. But something in Carla's tone was different, kind, curious, genuine. "It's ideas," Eleanor admitted finally. "About how we could make life easier for people like us. About care, community, dignity." Carla leaned forward, eyes wide. "That's incredible. My mother's going through the same thing. She hates being treated like she's invisible. If you ever get something started, I'd love to help." The words hit Eleanor like a spark in the dark. Help. For weeks, the two women met in the lounge late at night, laptops open, whispering like conspirators. Carla helped Eleanor set up a basic website. Together, they brainstormed the name, Second Wind Living. It sounds like hope, Carla said, smiling. That's exactly what it is, Eleanor replied, her eyes glistening. At first, Second Wind Living was nothing more than a blog. Eleanor wrote heartfelt essays about aging, dignity, and the resilience of elders abandoned by society. Carla helped her post them online, formatting the text and adding stock images. But what began as a whisper soon became a roar. Emails trickled in from seniors across the country. Your words gave me strength. Thank you for reminding me that my life isn't over. Do you have resources? I need help. Eleanor sat in awe, staring at the inbox that filled faster every day. For the first time since her children left her at St. Mary's, she felt not forgotten, but needed. The attention, however, also brought scorn. Other residents mocked her. What are you playing at, Eleanor? A blog won't change the world. We're old. Just accept it. Even the nursing home director disapproved. This facility isn't here to encourage unrealistic ambitions. You should focus on your health, Mrs. Hayes. Unrealistic. That word stung worse than burden. But Eleanor refused to quit. Late at night, she pored over spreadsheets, learning basic accounting, digital marketing, and the mechanics of starting a nonprofit. Carla brought in a young IT student she knew, who offered to help them set up an online donation platform. People want to support you, Carla said. You're giving them a voice. Let's give them a way to join. When the donation page went live, Eleanor prayed silently. Would anyone care? The first donation came from a woman in Ohio, $25 with the note, for all the mothers forgotten. Then another, $100 from California. Then another. And another. Within weeks, Eleanor had raised nearly $5,000, enough to register Second Wind Living as an official nonprofit. But success didn't erase the pain. Her children still hadn't called. Birthdays passed in silence. Holidays came and went, leaving Eleanor staring at empty visitor chairs. One evening, she overheard Daniel's voice on the nursing home answering machine. He hadn't called her, he had called the director. Just make sure she's looked after. We can't afford surprises. Honestly, I don't think she even understands much anymore. Eleanor's hands shook as she listened. Didn't understand? The rage that boiled inside her was no longer quiet sorrow. It was fire. She returned to her notebook and scrawled in big, determined letters. I will not only matter. I will dominate. Eleanor poured herself into her work. With donations growing, she launched small pilot programs, affordable meal deliveries for seniors, virtual community sessions to combat loneliness, even financial workshops for retirees. The nursing home became her unofficial office. Some staff ridiculed her behind her back, but others began respecting her. She's not like the rest, they whispered. She's building something. And she was. Yet, for every step forward, there was a wall waiting. Banks refused her loan applications. Investors laughed at her proposals. One corporate executive told her bluntly during a video call. Mrs. Hayes, you're inspiring, sure. But let's be honest, you're past your prime. No serious company will back you. Leave the market to the younger generation. The call ended, and Eleanor sat staring at her reflection on the screen. Wrinkled. Gray-haired. Alone. But her eyes burned with defiance. If they won't give me a seat at their table, she whispered, then I'll build my own damn table. The turning point came when Carla introduced Eleanor to a retired lawyer who specialized in elder rights. With his help, she discovered loopholes, grants, and government funding programs nobody else bothered to claim. Piece by piece, she stitched together a fragile but powerful foundation. Second Wind Living was no longer just a blog. It was becoming a movement. But with growth came attention. And with attention came enemies. Late one night, Eleanor received an anonymous email. "Old lady, you don't know what you're getting into. Stay out of this industry before you get hurt." Her hands trembled, but her spirit did not. She wrote back a single line. "You can't break what's already been broken and rebuilt stronger." And then she hit send. That winter, as snow painted the world white outside her nursing home window, Eleanor stood at the edge of something greater. She had no penthouse yet. No empire. But she had something even more dangerous: momentum. The burden they discarded was rising. And the world was about to notice. The new year dawned cold and merciless, but Eleanor Hayes was no longer the fragile woman shivering on her nursing home mattress. She was a woman with a mission. Every morning, while the other residents shuffled into the cafeteria for tasteless oatmeal, Eleanor sat with her laptop, her notebook spread open like a war map. Second Wind Living had started as a whisper. Now it was a drumbeat. Her first breakthrough came when a popular journalist stumbled across one of her blog posts, "The Day My Children Left Me Behind." The piece was raw, unflinching, a mother's heartbreak written in trembling but powerful words. The article went viral. Major outlets picked it up. Eleanor was invited to appear on a morning talk show. "Today, we bring you a story that proves age is just a number," the host beamed as Eleanor sat beneath the studio lights. "Mrs. Hayes, you're inspiring thousands of people. How did it all begin?" Eleanor, her hair carefully combed by Carla, adjusted her glasses and looked straight into the camera. "They thought putting me in a nursing home was the end of my story," she said softly. "But it was only the beginning. Seniors are not burdens. We are the backbone of society. We have wisdom, strength, and still so much to give. And I intend to prove it." The audience rose in applause. Viewers across the country cried into their coffee mugs. Donations flooded in. Overnight, Second Wind Living's funding tripled. With resources finally in hand, Eleanor made a bold decision: she left the nursing home. It wasn't easy. The director tried to convince her to stay. "At your age, stability matters more than chasing dreams." But Eleanor had outgrown the beige walls and the smell of bleach. She moved into a modest apartment downtown, nothing luxurious, just a small space with a view of the city skyline that reminded her daily of how far she still had to go. She turned her living room into an office. Carla became her first official employee, and the retired lawyer joined as legal counsel. The team was small but relentless. Together, they launched the first Second Wind Living Center, a community hub for seniors, offering workshops, health programs, and financial planning. It wasn't glamorous, just a rented space in an old church basement. But when the doors opened, the line stretched around the block. Eleanor stood at the entrance, greeting each person with tears in her eyes. "Welcome home," she whispered to every gray-haired face. The success attracted investors. At first, most of them scoffed. "Too niche," they said. "Old people don't spend money." But Eleanor had data now. Charts. Testimonials. Demand. She proved them wrong, one presentation at a time. And when one bold investor finally signed a check, others followed like dominoes. Within 2 years, Second Wind Living expanded into 3 states. Eleanor's name began appearing in business magazines. She wasn't just a grandmother with a dream anymore. She was the CEO of a rising empire. Yet power always comes with a price. At a gala event, a venture capitalist pulled her aside. "You're impressive, Mrs. Hayes. But you're too soft. If you want to scale, you'll need to toughen up. Cut costs. Stop wasting time on emotional nonsense. This is business. Eleanor stared him down, her voice calm but cutting. If you think compassion is a weakness, you'll never understand why I'm winning. My business isn't built on greed. It's built on dignity. And dignity scales faster than you think. The man laughed. Months later, his company filed for bankruptcy. But not all battles were so easily won. Competitors emerged, imitating her model. Some were backed by corporations determined to crush her. They launched smear campaigns, calling her unstable and too senile to run a business. One headline read, "Granny CEO, Inspiration or Illusion?" Eleanor pinned the article to her office wall. "Every time they doubt me, I rise higher," she told her team. And she did. As the empire grew, so did Eleanor's transformation. She traded her threadbare sweaters for tailored suits. She walked into boardrooms with her cane like a general's staff, her presence commanding silence. Younger executives who once dismissed her now leaned forward, eager for her approval. The woman who once ate tasteless soup in a nursing home was now dining in glass towers overlooking Manhattan. But she never forgot the taste of that soup. She never forgot the loneliness of her empty visitor chair. And she never forgave the children who had put her there. It was during a press conference, cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions, that Eleanor received a text message from Carla. "It's them. Your children. They want to meet." For a moment, the world blurred. She could almost see Daniel and Linda as they once were, small hands clutching hers, giggles in the park, bedtime stories whispered by lamplight. But then the memory shifted. Daniel's cold voice on the nursing home answering machine. Linda's silence on her birthday. The betrayal. Her heart raced. She had built all of this to prove she wasn't broken. But now, the ghosts of her past stood at her doorstep, seeking entry. Eleanor took a deep breath, her diamond brooch glinting beneath the stage lights. To the reporters, she smiled with practiced grace. "Success isn't measured by what you achieve for yourself," she said into the microphone. "It's measured by how many lives you uplift along the way." But inside, a storm brewed. The children who once abandoned her now wanted back in. And Eleanor Hayes was finally ready to face them. The penthouse shimmered like something out of a dream, glass walls framing the Manhattan skyline, chandeliers dripping crystals like frozen tears, and velvet furniture so rich it almost seemed sinful. Eleanor Hayes stood in the center of it all, her cane resting firmly by her side. This was no longer the Eleanor of the nursing home. The frail old woman discarded in silence had become a queen atop her empire. Second Wind Living was now a household name, with centers across the country, millions in revenue, and a reputation that made even hardened CEOs bow their heads. But tonight, none of that mattered. Because tonight, her children were coming. She hadn't seen them in nearly a decade. Not since the day they dropped her off like unwanted luggage at St. Mary's nursing home. The wound had scarred over, but the ache never fully left. When the elevator chimed, her breath caught. The doors opened, and there they were, Daniel and Linda. Older now, their once youthful confidence weathered by life. Daniel's hair was thinning, Linda clutched a designer bag like it was a shield. They stepped in cautiously, their eyes wide at the grandeur around them. "Mother," Daniel began, his voice awkward, uncertain. Eleanor's heart thudded. That word, mother, felt foreign, like a language she had forgotten. "Why now?" she asked simply. Her voice was calm, but beneath it was the steel of years of abandonment. Linda looked down, guilt flickering in her eyes. "We saw you on the news. We didn't realize. Didn't realize I was still alive?" Eleanor's voice cracked like a whip. Didn't realize the woman who raised you wasn't ready to be buried yet? The silence that followed was unbearable. Daniel finally spoke. We were wrong. We thought we were doing what was best. You seemed so fragile. We thought you'd be safer there. Eleanor's cane struck the marble floor sharply. Safer? I wasn't your child to be tucked away. I was your mother. And you made me feel like a burden. Her voice trembled now, the years of pain rising like a tide. Do you have any idea what it feels like, sitting in a room full of forgotten souls, waiting for children who never come? Watching birthdays pass with empty chairs? Listening to strangers tell you your life is over? Linda's tears spilled. We were selfish. We didn't see it then. We see it now. Please, forgive us. For a moment, Eleanor's resolve wavered. She saw them not as adults, but as the children she once cradled. The echoes of lullabies, scraped knees, whispered promises of protection. The love that had been buried under betrayal still lingered, faint but stubborn. But forgiveness could not erase the years. You don't get to walk back into my life because I've made something of myself, Eleanor said, her tone steady. You don't get to claim me now that I'm a success, when you abandoned me at my lowest. Daniel's jaw tightened. We're not here for your money. We want to be part of your life again. Eleanor studied him. His eyes, once sharp with pride, now carried something she had never seen before, humility. Regret. And then, unexpectedly, she felt the fire in her chest soften. She turned toward the floor-to-ceiling windows, the glittering city lights stretching endlessly before her. I built this empire to prove I was unbreakable, she said softly. But the truth is, I was broken. Every dollar, every headline, every cheer from strangers couldn't fill the emptiness of being unloved by my own children. Daniel and Linda exchanged a glance, tears in their eyes. Eleanor turned back to them, her gaze sharp but no longer cruel. If you want forgiveness, you will earn it. Not by words, but by actions. By showing up. By remembering that I am not a burden, I am your mother. Linda rushed forward, falling to her knees. She clutched Eleanor's hand, sobbing. We'll prove it. We'll never abandon you again. For the first time in years, Eleanor allowed herself to weep. The headlines the next day told only part of the story, from nursing home to penthouse, Granny CEO reunites with estranged children. What they didn't capture was the fragile, trembling embrace in that glittering penthouse. The years lost could never be returned, but the fire of resilience had given Eleanor something far more powerful than revenge. It had given her choice. She chose not to remain a victim. She chose not to be consumed by bitterness. She chose to forgive, but never forget. Months later, at a Second Wind Living gala, Eleanor took the stage before a crowd of thousands. They said I was too old. Too fragile. A burden. But here I stand, living proof that it is never too late to rise. The applause thundered, but her eyes sought out only two faces in the crowd, Daniel and Linda, standing together, tears streaming down their cheeks as they clapped for the mother they once discarded. Eleanor raised her cane like a scepter. You cannot break what has already rebuilt itself stronger. And to anyone listening, remember this, the world may count you out, but only you decide when your story ends. The crowd erupted. And in that moment, beneath the golden lights of her empire, Eleanor Hayes was no longer just a survivor. She was a legend.